Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Without objection, I'm making the following appointments for this meeting. Recorder, Michelle Bennett. Parliamentarian, Jeremy Tucker. Timekeeper, Mark Heinz. Sergeant at Arms, Chief David Massey. Teller, Steve Habiger. Seeing no questions, please make the appointments as necessary. Now, as is tradition every year, there is an award presented for the volunteer spirit in support of the Ocean Pines Association. And it's been a tradition every year that we've made this Sam Wilkinson Award to an individual worthy as a recipient. And I'd like to bring up Debbie Donahue to make the presentation. Debbie.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm just going to read a little bit about the award first. The Sam Wilkinson Award was established in August 2003 in honor of an 8-year-old boy. Excuse me, as you can tell, I don't talk well in front of people, sorry about that, who lost his life in a tragic accident at Northside Park in Ocean City. But as a way of honoring his memory and his family, we did a dedication to the Ocean Pines Recreation and Parks Department. This award was established to recognize other outstanding individuals who dedicate their time and talents to help others. Sam's father, Bob Wilkinson, was a volunteer at the time for Ocean Pines Recreation Department, coaching soccer, excuse me, for many years, as well as Sam's participated in soccer and many other sports and events here in Ocean Pines. Each year, the Ocean Pines Recreation and Parks Department honors one volunteer that stands out in our department. This year, we're honoring a gentleman that is one of the most pleasant, funny, hardworking people I know. He was born and raised in Central New Jersey, moved here in May of 2012. He has an 11-year-old daughter, Alyssa, that keeps him very busy. Enjoys working with kids. He does mud runs and 5K runs. He participates in a lot of our adult programs, such as dodgeball, kickball, and softball. But aside from that, he volunteers for us in our kids' programs, multiple programs, and special events. He's even been our Easter Bunny. About 4 years ago, his daughter Alyssa was playing soccer and in our program and offered to help. He offered to help with the program, and well, you know, when you offer to help for me, you're in it for life. That's just the way it goes, because we call you all the time. So anyway, once he offered that, we started with him doing soccer instruction. He continued to offer his help for many of the events and anywhere else that we may need his help. When I spoke to him about excuse me, when I spoke to him about the award, he was extremely excited and honored. He stated, "I am extremely honored and proud of this award. It tells me that the work I've put in these past 4 years coaching these kids, either being the volunteer or being their coach, has made a difference in these kids' lives as far as making them happy, having fun through the love of soccer. It also makes me feel that parents are happy with the soccer experience we are providing for their amazing children, and being the Easter Bunny is pretty cool too." This year, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to announce this year's Sam Wilkinson Volunteer of the Year is Mr. Joe Monteverde. And his daughter, Alyssa. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything that you do for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guess they want my face.
Alyssa.
Oh, come on in, baby girl. Congratulations. You can,
I don't know why, but I'm like extremely nervous about this. I have no clue why. But I just want to say thank you very much to Debbie, to Katie, who's back there, to everybody I've worked with coaching for the past 4 years. I've worked with a bunch of different people. This is my daughter, Alyssa. I started doing this because of her. I put her in the Ocean Pines soccer program when she was very, very little. I volunteered to help coaching because I love soccer. I love little kids. I love working with them, and I look forward to almost every day after work when the season starts. Like, I can't wait to get to soccer because, you know, these kids, like, they just make me smile, make me happy. It's a great time. Now she's older. We're actually on our way to soccer evaluations because she plays in the league, and I coach her soccer team. So we're actually on our way out there after this. I just want to say thank you very much. I'm honored to receive this, and I'm going to continue coaching soccer here as long as they let me, you know? So thank you very much again. I appreciate it.
Congratulations, Joe. Thank you for your service. Now, according to protocol, we have to have an ascertainment of quorum. Tellers, Mr. Steve Habiger.
Unfortunately, we do not have a quorum at this time. If you have more than one property in Ocean Pines, please know you can count for as many properties as you own. It is property, not people-based. So if you only checked in for one property and you own multiple, please visit the registration table and let them know. Yeah. Yeah, I've often heard, call Marvin Steen because he owns a number of properties. Yet yesterday, we looked up Marvin Steen, and he's only listed for one property. There must be business, you know. A lot of properties are owned by estates, by businesses, and things like that. Well, not seeing a rush over. We were at 17 short a moment ago. Yeah, we need to round up the usual suspects, Chief. If you would please go over to the farmer's market and just tell them that we need a dozen or so would do the trick.
So in the interest of time, and unless there's any objection from the membership, while we're waiting to determine if we can get enough people to establish a quorum, and I turn to my parliamentarian and make sure that I'm not out of order, would it be appropriate to move forward with the reports, even though we haven't adopted the agenda, or is it procedure to adopt the agenda and then do the reports? I'm just asking for a clarification.
Sure. I mean, we can formally do the reports, but they would have to be added to the minutes if the meeting is actually called to order. So the written reports would have to be submitted as written reports, not reflect as oral reports in the minutes of the meeting, since the meeting has not been formally called to order. So we can
Right.
either do it now informally if somebody objects, and then everybody.
Did everybody hear the response? All right, Jeremy, why don't you say that again?
Excuse me, since we don't have, excuse me, I'm Jeremy Tucker, good morning. Since we do not have quorum, formally the meeting cannot be called to order, we can't do anything formally. If we give reports now, they're not going to be reflected in the minutes of the meeting. If, what we could do is give our reports now out of a matter of time, and they would be introduced into the minutes of the meeting, a written report, a written documentation of that. So it'd be, when we actually called the meeting to order, the reports would be submitted in writing, and we would sort of not go formally through the actual oral reports again, unless anybody objects to that type of thing. Alternatively, we could in the interim just go to open forum comment section right at the moment and let people begin making comments right now if we wanted to start that, and we can always close it down if the meeting doesn't happen.
So since this is a meeting of the membership, we have a couple of options. We can wait 10 minutes or so to see if they return. I see a lot of people going, no. We can open the floor for public comments. Sorry.
Sorry, the time capsule. Just give the time capsule update.
We can give the time capsule update? Okay. Sorry for the confusion, but we want to make sure that we don't violate any protocol with regards to Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedure. So absent of any objection, Jenny Cropper-Rhines, if you could come up and give us a report on the time capsule. Thank you.
So I think everybody knows this is the 50th anniversary of Ocean Pines. And can everybody hear okay? I don't want to get too close and loud. I have good news about the time capsule, and I have bad news about the time capsule. The good news is we do know where all the power lines and utilities are in the area of the southeast corner of the admin building. The bad news is we can't find the time capsule. So, okay, in 1988, they buried a time capsule at the 20th anniversary of Ocean Pines. And we had a monument, or we still have a monument at the southeast corner, which is, if you're facing the admin building, the right-hand side. So, obvious, first thing we did was dig where the monument was. And there was no time capsule there. So Sharon O'Hare got Frank Litch to go with metal detectors, no time capsule. Joe Costello had his divining rods, no time capsule. We went and found Nate Pearson, who chaired the 20th committee, and he had some photos. So we looked at the photos and realized, well, they obtained the monument several months after they buried the time capsule, so the pictures made it look like it was in a completely different place. So we dug a hole, and I'm not talking little holes. I'm talking 4 or 5 feet deep holes. There was one hole we saw water in. So, I mean, the public works guys were wonderful. It was like a treasure hunt. Everybody wanted to find the thing, but we didn't find it. What Michelle Bennett was able to locate was the press release. So we do have an idea of what was in it, which was mostly stuff that the clubs, pictures the clubs gave to put into the time capsule. There were some coins, photographs, a videotape of the Days in May parade that happened that year, an audio tape of an original song about Ocean Pines by Hap Chopert. I don't know if anybody knows anything about it, but I mean, maybe we'll locate some of this stuff and put it in the... Anyway, to make a long story short, we're going to do a new time capsule this year, and we're going to ask the clubs again to do something like that. We're going to come up with something slightly more clever than putting it in the ground, I think, which appears not to have been a good idea. Whether it's just hard to say what happened, whether it got dug up before the monument went there. We did find the one that was buried 10 years ago, and we're going to relocate that safely also, and we are not going to look at the contents because we're not supposed to for 20 more years. So that's it. Kind of a bummer, but it was quite, well, I don't know, it was a little bit of an adventure, and you just didn't know when Public Works was going to call and say, we're digging today, you know? It was like, you're back looking at the hole again. Disappointing, but we will make a call. We're going to finish the new time capsule towards the end of the year when all the events of the 50th anniversary are over with. So we've got a thumb drive with all the pictures from the Family Fun Day, and we've got video of the parade, and we're going to accumulate that stuff. We're going to ask for the clubs, and we're going to ask for small items. And it was in basically, what I understand anyway, is about a 4-foot piece of PVC. So things we can roll up, small things. I was hoping there was supposedly a videotape. That would have been pretty neat to see, but it is what it is. So we're going to continue celebrating the 50th anniversary. We're going to make a new time capsule and figure out something safe to do with it. That's all. While we're waiting, okay, well, I mean, I got a list. I could talk all day, so I won't, though. I'll just let you know kind of what we've done for the 50th anniversary. We started with a logo contest, and Lisa Perez won the logo contest. She's a resident. We made signs. We had a license plate auction. We had the parade and Family Fun Day, golf tournament, beach bash. Anyway, all day, long list of stuff. Today, there's a cocktail party at the golf club. There's racket sports tournament coming up next Saturday, August 18th. There's going to be a boat parade August 25th, which should be pretty fun, I think. There's going to be a winter gala on November 10th. A sock hop in December. I'm pretty sure the 14th is the date, but we're still kind of working on that one. And then at the very end of the year, we'll take all the memories from these events and put them in the new time capsule. And 2 seconds to thank all the volunteers for this. And if there's one thing that this anniversary has showed me is that we have a really cool community of people who love it and are willing to work to do things that are nice for it. So that being said, thanks to everyone who's volunteered and the staff who has had just bottomless patience. No one has said to us, you want to do that. It's all been can do. And thank you, Denise, and everyone who's helped. So that's really all I got.
Well, considering the meeting hasn't been formally called to order yet, and I'm chairing it, if it's relevant to the 50th anniversary, certainly, Sharon.
I just want to thank Jenny. I mean, we kind of twisted her arm. She was amazing. Carol Ludwig is sitting back here. Where are you, Carol? Maybe she went to, there she is. She's the co-chair. And August 30th, that's right. It seems to me there was, oh, we didn't talk about the history panel too. The one thing that came out in the history panel, and we had 6 people up here that have been here from the beginning. John Talbot, original lot sales in the beginning. And the number one thing that came out is Ocean Pines has been founded on volunteerism. And 50 years later, it still is. And thank you, Jenny, and all the rest of the committee people have helped, and Denise, and JB, and Doug, everybody who says, sure, go ahead and do it. So it's an amazing, amazing community. And just one plug for the dinner dance, the gala. Tickets are on sale today. They're $160. It is a full dinner and amazing event scheduled for November 10th. Open bar, a show band from Virginia Beach has been hired. It's going to be an over-the-top of events. So if you're interested, see me afterwards. I'll be here, and there'll be tickets for sale at the community center. We are going to sell out, so you're going to want to move on that very quickly. See you tonight at the cocktail party, okay? Thanks again, Jenny. Bye.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Jenny, as well, for all your work and all the volunteers that also helped in that endeavor. Again, I'll call Mr. Habiger up to the podium. Thank you.
I certify that we have a quorum.
Thank you. Now, so parliamentary procedure, I want to make sure everybody's aware of how we handle this now. So I've been asked that there's some folks that want to bring up motions. Okay, so how it works is we're moving into the approval of the agenda section of the meeting. We have to approve the agenda as is. Okay, so if we move forward, right now it says new business, none. So that's what we'd be approving. So in order for folks to bring up a motion during new business, we have to entertain a motion to amend the agenda as presented. So if someone wants to bring up a motion, then I need you to come up here and officially request that the agenda for this meeting be amended to allow motions to be opened during new business. Understood? All right, so I need, if we're not going to do that, then certainly we can move on, but I see someone approaching. Anyone? All right, please, if someone's good, if not, I'm going to close this portion. Right. I'll do. I want to make sure we get a motion first.
I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but I understand that we don't have a noise ordinance for dogs barking in Ocean Pines.
All right. So what we need to do is, let me explain one more time. What we need to do is amend the agenda of this meeting that's already been posted to introduce motions in new business. All right, so if anybody's interested in amending the agenda of the meeting, not making a motion right now, but making a motion to amend the agenda so we can have motions under new business, all right? I know.
I'd like to make a motion to that effect that we allow.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of amending the agenda as presented to allow for motions to be introduced during the new business portion of this meeting, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. Therefore, the agenda is amended, and the floor will be open for motions during new business. Thank you. Be advised, Section 402 of our bylaws, let me read it to you so there's no questions. Under Section A, and where there has to be a notification of the annual meeting, and it says, issues not contained in the notice of the meeting as provided in Section 4.07 shall not be binding on the association or the board of directors. Okay? So that's in our bylaws. So clearly, the benefit here, from my perspective, would be the issue can be brought up at a subsequent board meeting for discussion and decision as necessary, but just want to make sure everyone is advised that any decision made here is not binding at this point according to our bylaws, okay? Now, moving on to the next item. Approval of the minutes of the annual meeting from August 12th, 2017. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented. So moved. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from the annual meeting from August 12th, 2017, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The minutes are approved. Moving into the reports section. First report today is our legal report. Jeremy Tucker.
Thank you, Doug. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeremy Tucker. I am one of the association's attorneys. We've been working with you for about coming on 2 years now. We provide a significant amount of legal advice, counsel, and negotiation services to the association. Wanted to just update you on a few things that have sort of transpired over the last year since we talked last year. One, we've been dealing with a number of HR issues, including reviewing your handbook, dealing with staffing issues. We've addressed some bulkhead contract issues that came up unexpectedly in the winter of last year. Most notably, and I hope everybody's enjoying, the new beach club and yacht club restaurant. We helped negotiate the Mad Orc contract, which was a pretty detailed thing, so thank you. That was a wonderful. I hope that has been well received by the membership. It seems to be going very well on many fronts. We obviously do a lot of your collections for unpaid assessments. That was one of the main issues that the board really had tasked us with, is to trim down the AR. And I just wanted to give you all an update on how we've done since we came on and over the last year. Since we started doing your collections in January 1st, 2017, we've collected around $376,000 for the association. Year to date, so January 1, 2018 to date, we've collected approximately $141,000. And so what we've seen is that we've been very successful, fortunately for you all, and fortunately for the community as a whole. And I think what this and the prior board really wanted to create was an environment where there was accountability for assessments, because I think everybody in the room would agree that you shouldn't be shouldering the burden who's somebody who is not paying. And so that was one of the priorities that we were given and we were tasked with, and we've pursued an aggressive course of collection. And fortunately, that's been successful. We are currently tasked with reviewing the drainage issue, and that is a pretty significant issue, and we'll be advising the board within the new board especially within the coming weeks as to what our legal conclusion is on that. As expected, your documents aren't clear with respect to this particular issue, and there's ambiguities there, and so we are working to resolve them and figure out the best course of action going forward. There is a piece of pending litigation that I do need to advise you, because it is disclosed in your resale certificates. This is a case of Brett Hill versus Colette Horn, the association's secretary, and the board of directors. As you may or may not be aware, this case arises out of Mr. Hill's challenge of the decision that he was not eligible to be a candidate for the board of directors for a reason or two. Mr. Hill has taken the case to the circuit court. An answer has been filed by the attorney handling the case, and as well as a motion to dismiss. Upon getting the case, we immediately spoke with JB and was referred to your insurance counsel. So your insurance company, and they appointed counsel who's handling it, which is great because that, for you all, keeps the legal costs down because the insurance company will pick up. Lastly, and one of the most big issues that we're dealing with right now is the cable Mediacom contract and looking at all those. And so we're working through those issues right now with Mediacom and the board, and we look forward to talking to the new board about those issues. On a personal note, for those residents that I've spoken to, I thank you for your comments. For the committee chairs that I've spoken to, thank you very, very much for all of the information that you've been able to provide to me. It's been really a true honor to represent you, and we hope to continue to do so in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next report will be our financial report from our treasurer, John Viola.
Okay. Good morning. So this year, I am your treasurer, CFO. Last year, I reported to you as the controller for the association. So with that, for today, today's presentation will be a presentation of the financial results, the audited financial results from our outside auditors, which have been put into certain documents, management type of reports, so that you can understand where our money, where your money goes, and how we did as an association for the year. Okay. So with the first slide, we'll start off with our operating fund actual results to budget. So on this slide, you can see the first column was our budget, our actual results audited, and then the variance. So for our budget, we always budget to 0. When you look at the actual, and if you want to jump down to the bottom, you can see for the year, our operating loss was $1.247691. So we lost as an organization, as an association for the year, $1,247,691. So if you look at the variance, the assessment money was pretty much right on target. The police, the EMS, you can see, and I'll get into more detail on the next slide on some of this information, but here you can see we were favorable. Public Works, Maintenance, Recreation and Parks, and the other, I'll give more detail on that. But if you scroll down to the amenities, you can see a big part of the $1.2 million was our amenities, and I'll talk more about that. Okay? Next slide. So here you see on the bottom, the $958,000, which on the prior slide was the amenities. So to give more detail on it, the yacht club compared to budget was down $678,000. Beach club, $346,000. Turns Grill, $28,000. So $1 million of the $1.247 million was food and beverage. The golf, the beach club, parking, all pretty much in line. The marinas right on target, and the racket clubs. So you can see $1 million was for food and beverage. I will explain more on where the other $200,000 went as we go on. Okay? So on this slide now, this is where we compare 2018 actual to 2017 actual prior year. So how did we do compared to prior year? So again, scroll down to the bottom, and we can work our way backwards. In 2017, we had a loss, as reported last year, of $369,000, roughly $370,000. And this year, the $1,247,000. So the loss increased by $879,000. Again, if you go over to the variation column, the last column, you can pretty much see where the difference in the increase was. Again, the amenities was a big part of it, and also some of the operating departments, which I'll talk about more in the next few slides. Okay. Next slide. So on this slide, we try to give more detail on the amenities from the prior slide, because there is a lot involved with the amenities. And you can see, as we talk about prior year, you go down to food and beverage, you go to the total line, and it was unfavorable to the prior year by an increase of $727,000. Golf, aquatics, all coming in way more favorable. And the 416,000. Again, big part of it was food and beverage. Next slide. So I know we all, a question I always read or I receive is, where did my assessment dollars go? So on this slide, you can see we're breaking down the money we spent for 2018 and 2017. We're comparing the 2018 to the budget. We all know that $921,000 number, $921 number. So again, starting from the bottom, and I'll work up, we spent $1,069 in 2018. And then you could see in 2017, we spent, it came out to $965. Again, if you go over to the totals, you know, and I'll get into more detail on another slide, but it's pretty much the amenities again, along with some administrative expenses that I'll talk about. Okay. Next slide. So again, on the prior slide, there was the detail of the operating expenses, and in this slide, we break out what the detail of that was. So for the budget for 2018 for the operating departments, you can see the budget. You can see our actual for 2018 and our 2017 actual, so you can get a comparison. So on this one, I like to scroll down to general administration. And you can see that we were unfavorable, or we spent $39 per household compared to a budget of $2. And I just want to give you some detail on where that money went, because in addition to the food and beverage, this is the biggest difference in the other part to get to the loss that we had for that fiscal year. So if I was to break down where the money went for there, our legal expenses were over budget by $110,000. The IT and consultants in administration was over by $116,000. The accounting fees were over by $26,000 for a total of $252,000. Our bad debts were increased by $70,000 for a total of $322,000, and that pretty much comes out to that difference of $37. The accounting, the $26,000 that was spent on the accounting, I can break that down for you. We did have the accountants do some extra work that wasn't in the budget last year. There was also a situation where actually it was me that brought in, with the approval of the board and the acting GM, brought in an accounting firm to do some certain work based upon something that we saw. And I wanted somebody independent in there to look at it, so that was maybe around $10,000. The IT consultants, there was a change last year where, as an association, I guess the plan was to bring outsourced work inside to Ocean Pines, to try to do it inside. So the net of all that was about $116,000 over budget. Okay, the legal, there was a lot going on. I'm not going to get into the detail today on that, but there was, I know, a lot going on last year, and that showed up in the legal expenses. So besides the food and beverage, that, if you take those numbers, and there was favorability, there was really a lot of good stuff last year. The police department, Rex, Public Works, membership, the marinas, the racket sports, the aquatics, were all pretty much in line, all pretty much right there with budget, if not favorable. So there was a lot of good last year also. So it's almost a tale of two cities there. Right? There was a lot of good, some not so good. The not so good we'll work on, and I'm sure we'll transform from that. So, next slide. All right, so again, your distribution dollars, if just to go back, some detail of numbers you saw on the prior page. And again, here you can see where the food and beverage, not so good. Golf, aquatics, just like I mentioned, we're very good at beach parking, and a lot of favorability there. Okay? So I think that pretty much gives you a picture of where that loss of $1,247,000, how it came about, where it was, and what offset it. So with this slide, what I'm showing is, and we've seen a slide like this in the past, we are running 2 years in a row where our operating fund or was in an expense, there were losses. 2017 as reported, $370,000 roughly. 2018, $1,248,000. So we have a fund balance operations. Now we did have a small balance left over from when we did the deficit recovery balance a couple of years ago. So our net fund balance is negative $1,611,331. Now, there are other positives, and I want to get into the reserves and other stuff, but that's where we're running, and that was the cost over the last 2 years versus the budget and versus the money we brought in. Okay? Next slide. All right, so this is, to be honest with you, I think was one of the best slides. So what we're doing here is your annual assessment increase history. So a lot of times we hear about our assessments and where we are and what kind of increases we have. So the assessment for 2019 was $951. If I go back 5 or 6 years and see what the assessment was, it was $914. So for 5 years, in a 5-year span, our assessment went up $37 per year. As a percentage increase total per year, that comes out to roughly 4%. Simple math on that. The increased annual average was less than 1%. If you go down to the bottom, you can see in 2015, I guess there was a decrease in the assessment. It was $909. It had stayed at $921. And then this current fiscal year, it's $951. So again, $37 increase over a 5-year period. Average annual increase, less than $8, less than 1%. Okay? Everybody following that? I mean, I have plenty of... Can you adjust that microphone a little bit? I think when you're too close. Yeah. How is that? Better if I'm back? Excellent, yes. Okay, so sorry about that. Hopefully you all heard me though, yeah? Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So the next slide, the summary of capital assets. If you look at the totals, so the total is the first column, the cost. That's the cost, the $47 million. That's the historical cost of our assets. Land improvements, the buildings, furniture, construction in progress. The second column is the accumulated depreciation. That's an accounting term. It's an accounting principle. Our assets over time slowly deteriorate or whatever, or they age. Our total accumulation in what we have, and this will come into play, I'm going to talk a little bit about the reserve study that's going on. So approximately 25 million of the 47 million has been depreciated. The net book value is $23 million. I want you to focus on the roads because this is coming up in the reserve study, and I'm sure you're going to read a lot about it, all different ways. But if you look at our roads approximate, the cost was around $8 million. $7,400,000 is already depreciated. The net is about $600,000. So our roads have been there. They've been utilized. There really has not been much in improving them. You can see the furniture, the buildings, where we're at. Okay, so that's our balance sheet, that's our assets. That's an accounting principle on the depreciation that does come into play when we fund the reserves, which is part of your assessments. Next slide. Okay, so this next slide is the reserves. So just give me a second here. So now, we talked about the P&L. We saw our balance sheet as far as our assets. And now it comes to our reserves, and we hear a lot about reserves and where are we? Are we over-reserved, under-reserved? So our balance, April 30th, 2018, $7.9 million. If I take the budget for 2019 on what we project and what we brought in, the additions that we included into the reserve was $2.7 million. What's projected today to be spent, $3.1 million, which would leave us with a projected balance April 30th, 2019, $7.5 million. That's pure reserves. If you look at the cash on the balance sheet, and especially this time of the year, you're going to see that probably $14 million, $13 million. Well, a lot of that cash came in right away because all your assessments come in at the beginning of the year. So your cash balance those first couple of months of the year, which we're in, you'll see a lot of cash. A lot of that cash is needed to fund the operations for the rest of the year. Salaries, supplies. So projected today at the end of the year, assuming that just our budget that we stay equal, $7.5 million based upon that spend, $3.1 million. Last year, when I presented, that balance was somewhere around 5-point-something million, if I remember correctly. The balance, a few reasons why the balance went up or was higher at the end of the year and even higher than projected was a lot of the spend that was projected last year on capital did not happen last year. So the reserve stayed at a certain level, but that spend didn't happen. So now the question is, when and where will that spend take place? So that could affect the ending balance, the 7.5. Okay? So I don't have a slide for this, but I just wanted to talk to a few things. So where are we today? Where are we from an association? Kind of gave you some bad news, but embedded in there, I tried to point out there is a lot of good news too. Well, today we have the audited financials. They were reviewed, and the auditors, the outside auditors will talk to that, but it was a good opinion. It was fine. We do have a forensic audit going on, and that's fine. And I won't talk about that today. And as the CFO, even from budget and finance, I'm not involved in that. And it should be that way. But we do have a forensic audit going on. There is a cost to that forensic audit. Some of the money that was in the reserves last year, or that was put in there, I'm sorry, for this current fiscal year that we're in now, that money was moved to pay for our forensic audit. Okay, that's this year. There was no money in last year's numbers for the forensic audit that's going on. There was some money in there, somewhere around $10,000, for an accounting firm to come in to review something that, as the controller, I felt that we needed somebody independent, and with the board approval and the acting GM. Okay? We have a reserve study going on, as I mentioned. The reserve study is a very valuable tool for us to come up with numbers or what exactly is needed for our reserves. That tool, it's a very many calculations, very intense calculation of all reserves, all our components, the depreciation that I talked to you about before, all comes into play. And it shows us where we are on our assets, when they would, from an accounting standpoint, from a accounting principle standpoint, when they would be fully depreciated, what money we should have in there to replace those components as time goes on. Air conditions break, Sometimes, roofs or whatever need to be replaced. So that money's in the reserves. That study brings it all into one binder, one calculation that we can see all the detail and we can make decisions when the next budget comes up, as well as now, on how viable our reserves are. So that study right now is pretty much complete. We're just waiting for the final, well, let me not use the word final, but the calculations to come back from DMA. They're an outside company who have the software for it, who also do the calculations for us. So you can kind of say that we outsource that process to somebody with their software, their knowledge, their background, their expertise to come up with the calculations based upon the input, the data that we give them. BNF has gone through it. The Budget and Finance team has made recommendations as far as inflation factors, escalation factors. So we're just waiting for those calculations to come back, as well as in those calculations are projected projects from the GM. Now, just because they're in this calculation or in the study doesn't mean those are the final numbers, does not mean we will actually do some of those projects. But that is the process we're going through right now so that we can come up with and get some type of study to substantiate the reserves. Okay? Just want to talk about the controls report that you receive every month. Working with the new controller. You'll see now if you go online, BNF is working with Steve and with the new GM on adding footnotes, a narrative from the GM each month, so that if somebody goes online, they're not just getting numbers, but they can actually see and understand some of the analysis or some of the unfavorable or hopefully favorable variations in what's caused them. There is oversight from the Budget and Finance team. They will oversight. They're going to work with the controller, with the fire department, with the bank reconciliations, just overseeing, ensuring that they're timely, signed off on, and there's nothing unusual, as well as disbursements. We've all heard that there is a disbursements register. I just want BNF to be able to just have some oversight, just go through it, maybe a certain dollar amount to see how everything is going. We're coming off 2 years of losses. There are options. I mean, there was a lot of favorability. Where I come from, or my background, or my feeling is that if somebody can do something better than us, well, we should look at that. That doesn't mean we do it, but we should certainly look at that. Everything we do, every department, even our amenities or whatever, we should have benchmarked information, metrics, to give us a guideline on where we stand. Now, I have to say, a lot of departments came to the Budget and Finance back in January when we were doing the budget, and they brought metrics. They brought what salary of, I'll just use the example, the police or aquatics. They brought that detail to us. And those departments are right on budget. And we need something like that. We need to do more of it. We are working towards it. We have been getting there. The departments have bought into it more and more, and they're doing that. And like I mentioned, a lot of departments are doing well. The food and beverage, well, that was outsourced. Hopefully, I'm anticipating, I don't want to say it, but that's JB's, I'm anticipating good things there. I hope to hear it like everybody else for the association. But other items are outsourced, and we don't even know about. Tax returns are outsourced to the accounting firm. Well, they have the expertise to do the tax returns, and something like that at a fair price, and rightfully so, as opposed to us doing it. The fixed asset register, all our detail for the fixed assets, that's actually already been outsourced. They have the software for it. They have the manpower for it. Just examples of where outsourcing works. That doesn't mean outsource everything, just little examples of it. But if we have departments that are doing a very good job, it needs to be looked at. And we do have a lot of departments doing very good jobs. The food and beverage, like I said, hopefully that comes right into play. I know the administration, the IT, finance, there was a lot of change went on over the last 2 years. I believe that can be transformed, and I believe it could be at a viable, acceptable cost. Okay? Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Sir, I think you got to, yeah, your name and wherever you live.
Lou Williams, 78 Teal Circle. First of all, John, I want to say thank you very much for being very transparent with the budget.
Totally transparent.
One, when you talk about several unfavorables, there's a budget concern. We've been under budgeted in some areas because we actually saw on paper the transformation of funds to other funds. Layman terms, that trickles down to the fact that we as members have to pay, as you stated in your report, additional or higher membership fees. So I think it's something that we need to look at, that if we have several unfavorables, that there's an issue with the budgeting, because if we know that there's item, for case in point, not to pick on Mr. Tucker, but I think there was a $36,000, $40-something thousand overage of what we budgeted. Well, we don't know why that was. We as members should know what that was. It could be something that was vital, but we don't know. And if we
Right.
continue down that path, we're going to have an increase in our membership. Thank
Right.
you.
Okay. That's well said. Let me just break that down into pieces. We did have the one transfer in this past year. Money moved out of roads reserves to pay for the forensic audit that's going on now. I'm not going to say that's a regular routine thing. At least I haven't seen it. So that one, let's put that one to the side. I don't want you all thinking that, that they're pulling on the reserves at any time. And there is a protocol that the board has to go through with our bylaws and resolutions for that to be done. The loss that I did talk to you about, that $1.6 million, somewhere, somehow, that will have to be addressed. We've had losses in the past, and there was a 5-year plan that I believe was put in. This was before I came down, that was put in, and gradually the money was in your assessments or our assessments to offset that. The $1.6 million for the last 2 years, I would feel, or I would recommend that the board addresses it. We're not going to get into how to address it today, but it certainly should be addressed. I don't believe something like that should just be, as I've been told by some members on BNF, just hold it up in the balance sheet. As far as the budgeting, if you heard what I was saying about substantiation, metrics, benchmarking, we're pushing more and more, BNF is pushing more and more of that. One of the situations last year with the yacht club was during the budget process, there was a very, I'm trying to think of the word I used when we, excessively optimistic revenue number that was brought forth. Now, there might have been good reasons for it. But I felt that we did not receive the proper substantiation for it, and that was across the board with the whole BNF team. If you listen to last year's budget, and JB can attest, when we received numbers, they weren't accepted. They were not accepted unless it could be substantiated with more detail. And the same thing with the reserve study, with the projects in there. I'm asking for substantiation. BNF is asking for substantiation, and that needs to be. So again, a big part of that last year was the excessively optimistic food and beverage numbers. But, we had a plan. I'm going to say there was a plan the association had, and, when you try something different, sometimes you get very good results, sometimes whatever. But, lessons learned from it and transformation from it, and hopefully with the outsourcing, we hear some good numbers coming forward. So, again, that happens, but it was more on the revenue side. I don't want thinking there was something else embedded in there, whatever. Now, there were some expenses that went along when you're gearing up or ramping up that you believe you're going to do more activity and get more favorable results. That happens. Doing it again, that's another story. The admin, I mentioned about the IT consultants. It was outsourced. We brought it in-house. Maybe, there needs to be some work there. We are looking at a new software system. I believe that is something that is needed, however we go about it, and that's not for today. We need that. Finance department went through a change. I can attest to it. I was in there. And that'll get on track. Hopefully I answered that question. It was good. Sir?
I just want to say I commend you for the best report I've ever heard on the budget.
Thank you.
You made it clearer than ever before, and especially, you did mention along the way how much each thing costs the household. Previously, budgets have been reported like as if this is a huge billion-dollar corporation, and $1 million is thrown out, and everybody thinks they've lost $1 million of their stock.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I appreciate that. I asked this to be done to John Bailey. I don't know if he told you. I asked him.
No, you didn't tell me.
Oh, you did this one, you are. Thank you very much.
Okay. No, you're right about that $1 million, and I could, I read it, I heard it. People have stopped me in stores or whatever. Look, we've transformed, we're going to move forward. Any other questions? Sir?
Yes, in general terms, how do you...
Sir, you have to come up.
Yeah, please.
You have to come up, name, address, or whatever.
Frank Maresca, 18 Stacy Court, and I'm a part-time resident here. Is that better now? 18 Stacy Court, Frank Maresca. And I'd appreciate it if in general terms you could say a little bit more about these two deficits, the Beach Club, $345,000, and the Yacht Club for $678,000. That's a lot of money. And so I wonder in general terms if you could just
Sure.
highlight a little bit what the hell happened there.
Sure. Yeah. Hey. I can,
Sorry to put you on the spot.
no, you're not putting me on the spot. It's part of I've been doing this all my life. So the Yacht Club, the Beach Club, kind of, let's combine the two. Like I had mentioned, in the budget, we looked at revenue numbers that were higher than we ever had before. That's what was put in the budget. That's what was presented. That's what the board approved. B&F questioned it. B&F did not agree in it, the Budget and Finance Committee. But they geared up. I'm going to say we, right? Because this is about us as the association. We geared up for it. The acting GM probably noticed things, or he incorporated new ways of making money, longer hours, whatever. And that's part of business. You have to try something. I think we all wanted something different up there, and it was tried. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. But with that said, with those, I'm not going to say excessive anymore. With those revenue projections, you also have to gear up, just like any company, gear up with your expenses. You're going to be open later because you want to generate income. Sounds like something to try. A lot of those costs that were incorporated, when the sales didn't happen, or for whatever reason at nighttime, I'm just taking some examples, and this is on a finance side. Well, those costs are still embedded in there. There's contracts that were entered into, and that happens. So that was a big part of the Yacht Club, the Beach Club. You had a lot of overtime. You had geared up with all these costs, thinking that these sales would come by being open later. And that's to a degree, that's a business plan. Look, I don't want to get on that side. Why? I can tell you from the finance side, but that's where that was. The admin, I mentioned, the other big piece of it, or the part of the piece of it, was admin, the legal, the IT, the fact that we brought it in-house versus outside, that whole transition there. Maybe there's a different way to look at that. So again, change. Sometimes change brings chaos, a little chaos. Sometimes a lot of chaos. But sometimes it works out. We worked out. Everybody, the main thing is to transform from it. And I really believe, as an association, everybody is looking to do that. But again, happened. Anybody else? Joe.
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. Could you address the impact on food and beverage of the 20% discount? I've heard that $200,000 or so, which, while it's an impact on OPA's bottom line, would accrue to the benefit of the association members who saved $200,000. So could you address that?
Yeah, and actually, I should have had that included, Joe. Thank you. From what I remember when I read back then, and again, at that time, I was whatever. But that was not budgeted for. That was something, there's a few other items, and now I got to think, that were not budgeted for. So we gave this 20%. And anytime you discount, you're hoping that your volume will go up because more people will come. Well, we discounted it, and it just didn't happen. So that was another situation, and that was not in the budget. And Joe's right, and those numbers kind of sound from what I remember last year. So you had that situation. So you kind of had a perfect storm going on there a little bit, but that was a big part of it. That decision was made after budget time, and it was incorporated. So that did have an effect. Also with golf last year. Golf, we lowered the prices for the golf memberships, rounds of golf, season passes, whatever, hopefully to be competitive with other golf courses. Well, I can tell you just on the membership, if there was 100 members or whatever, out of the 1,000 or 1,500 Ocean Pines people that play there, it didn't generate more memberships. So again, hoping, again, something done to kind of make sense, to try to get more volume, and it didn't happen. And even with that, golf tracked and is tracking right now, it's favorable. It's breaking even, it's making money. Sir?
Sorry for a follow-up question.
It's fine, as long as they say it's fine with me.
I don't want to monopolize, but I have a follow-up question.
Sure, it's fine with me as long as they're okay.
Just one more, promise. Yes, Frank Maresca.
Frank.
Look, you gave a good explanation, I think, as to explain to what happened with why those deficits arose. But
Right.
basically, what I heard you say is the demand for those services didn't equate to what had been budgeted in terms of equipment, supplies, and so on. So that raised in my mind another question: why not? And I'm only here in the summer, right? So I can't speak very effectively on what went on. But what I hear from my neighbors is that in the past, the yacht club wasn't a very nice place to go have lunch and dinner. So your demand is a function of the kind of management you have in these two facilities. And nobody's yet mentioned this issue. And maybe I got this all wrong, but there's a clear problem when you have residents who are permanent residents and part-time come in and we talk, right? We go out, cut the grass, whatever, and people say, oh, I don't go to the yacht club. Why not? Because the food stinks and the service is crappy. I tell you, I've been there since this summer, and I think there's been an improvement, in my own personal opinion. But I think that to some extent, and I appreciate it, to hear some professional comments on this, that part of our problem was a management issue, that the services were not provided to the level that required that people attend to meet those goals.
Okay. And I know I have somebody, well, go ahead. So last year, the controller stepped down and I filled in and made a commitment, which I fulfilled, but I was the controller. This year, the CFO stepped down, again at a inopportune time, and I filled in. I'm the CFO. What you're talking about is operations. What you're talking about, the management part. I'm on the finance side. I'm not trying to duck your question. The management team that was in place last year, it would only be fair if they were here to answer it. What can I tell you on that? And I'm not going to address that. I can address from the finance side. I can address that I did see, or at least my opinion was that we tried to do different things. Now, whether or not the food was up to par, that's something for the GMs. I certainly can render an opinion on it, but I don't think it's best for me to do that now. Maybe one day when I fill that spot in a temporary. Believe me, I'll give you plenty. So you have to bring your name up here. But I just don't think it's fair if the person's not here.
How you doing? My name is Stephen Curtis, and I live at 5 Lucas Court on the south side. And I've been here 5.5 years, and I've paid my HOAs on time, everything. And I do have a concern, and it's been the first year, I don't know if it's just God, but it's been the first year since I was able to enjoy the beach club, the yacht club. I got little kids, so I'm not able to enjoy those things. And I know everyone's making change, and I know the new board is getting better. But that's exactly what I'm saying about there's people here that are being taken advantage of. What if I don't want to pay $160 a year to have law enforcement? You know, I mean, honestly, God, I mean, we live in an HOA, and another thing that's going to reflect it is businesses. You got people go out and have a few drinks, and you know they're being harassed by cops sitting on the corner. Listen, I like the neighborhood being safe, but I don't think we should have to pay for that. I'm the one who cleaned up the south side, not this guy. This guy's lied to me right to my face. And no, wait. And I'm telling, I pay my taxes, I pay my HOAs.
You got somebody else has got to step.
Point of order, just for clarification, two things. One, if we can keep the comments relevant to finance,
Okay, yeah.
all right? And number two, decorum in a meeting, we don't tolerate personal attacks on anyone. I'm sorry, it's just the way it's in our, so I'd ask for your consideration on that as well.
Okay,
Thank
but
you.
I just want it to be more of a friendlier place to live and more positive. And I want the crab piers open for the little children, and I want to see a lot more children activities. And I'm sorry if that's, you know, I mean, that's a shame. You know, we're paying $160 per household to have womanizer standing on the corner. That's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, all right, listen, I don't mind answering the finance questions. I can't, the other stuff, it's not fair. I'm being told to wrap it up. I'll answer finance questions, transparency, whatever. Please keep it to the finance. All right, I have one more. I mean, it's not right, though.
Morning, John. Joe Tomarelli, 40 Decatur Court. We have casino funds. Can you tell us kind of where that goes to? And
Sure.
You have other at $700,000. Where does that come from, and what's that money allocated to?
So the casino funds do go to roads. If you look on the financials that we post or that Steve posts to the website, you'll see in the reserve, when we give the detail on the reserve, more detail than this, you'll see that the casino funds go to roads. I got to be honest with you, to find the 700, where's the 700,000? There's a lot of numbers here. Oh, okay, hold on, I got to find that. Anybody know where he's at? Oh, the balance sheet. Balance sheet. On the balance sheet, but. I know, usually I have the detail on a separate page. I just, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, that explains it, because I knew, okay, so this is a perfect exit, so, and I see Pete, sorry. All right, so Steve and Michelle put together some really neat handouts for everybody, and I think that's what the gentleman's looking at, and I'll take a look at it. So there's a green and a blue. That's for everybody to take home. I know I've gotten requests that the audited financials have the depreciation in it, and somebody wants to see how it relates to the controller's report. So there is a slide in there. Steve put that together. I know somebody requested that. I don't think it's good to have it in the audited financials, but Steve worked that up for everybody, and it's in there. You know what, right after this, I'll take a look at that, and I'll be glad to answer any questions on it. I just have to wrap up, okay? All right, I'm good. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, John. The next item on the agenda is the auditor's report. Paul Schifrin.
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Paul Schifrin. I'm an audit partner with SC&H Group. We are the financial statement auditors for the association. Just had kind of one slide about the four things that I'll quickly touch on. The first thing is what we actually deliver, which is the audit report. So John and his team and now Steve, their job is to put together the financial statements. It's their responsibility. Our job is to opine on those financial statements by doing the procedures that we do. And that what we produce really, you see is about a 50-page report. We're responsible for one page of that, which is the opinion on top. All the rest of the numbers are behind that gets generated by the finance department here. So the audit report that we did produce is what we call an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion. It's what you do want to see. It means that the numbers, after we have found them and made some minor adjustments or suggested some minor adjustments to them, are in accordance with GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles in the United States. So that is the audit report that we produced. We do a couple of other things as well in the course of our audit. The first thing is we have some required communications with those in charge of governance, which is the Finance Committee and the Board of Directors. So we issue a letter each year, which we did in July of this year, which basically just goes over a few things. It mentions what our responsibilities were, what their responsibilities were, talks about whether or not there was anything from a financial perspective that was difficult or hard to account for, and whether or not we had any difficulties working with management. Happy to report that we did not. It also says that management signs a representation letter basically saying that everything they told us is true and accurate to the best of their knowledge. There's no problem in obtaining that the representation letter from them. More than happy to give it to us, which is always a good sign. We got that as well. I just wanted to kind of touch on the audit procedures, because when you do an audit, you do not look at every transaction. We just look at a sample. That's just the way things are done. I also want to mention that I'm not the forensic auditor that John has talked about a few times. It's a completely different firm, so we're only dealing with the financial statements, not the forensic piece of this. Again, as John mentioned, there's was some turnover last year, there was some turnover again this year, and with the audit procedures and results this year, the numbers that we were given as saying this is the bottom line after we completed all of our audit procedures was only, I think, about $30,000 different from kind of the numbers. So we had audit adjustments of only $30,000. When you're talking about a $10 million budget across all of the different respective service lines, that's obviously very minuscule. So commend Steve, who was coming in pretty new to this, and his team and doing a very good job, which definitely helped us out. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was the last thing we issued was a management comment letter. Again, one of the things that John alluded to was that in the prior year, we had been asked as the financial statement auditors to do some additional procedures. Some of those was what became to be known, I think, around these parts as the deeper dive into the processes and procedures within the finance department and the different departments. So we did that, and we came up with a pretty long list of recommendations. So I'm happy to report that in this current year, we did not have any additional recommendations. We still issue a management letter every year, and we did issue one again this year. But in this year, really all that it did talk about was how everything that we had recommended in the prior year was either addressed completely, in the process of being addressed, or in a few cases because of changes, the biggest thing being going to a management team at the yacht club and places there where we had asked for, had some recommendations. They were no longer applicable because they were not being handled in-house anymore. So, as I said, that's basically, what we do. We come in, check out the numbers, look at some sample of all of different transactions among the departments, look at the internal control structure and make some recommendations there, and then produce our report, which again, as I said, was an unmodified report.
question.
All right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the President's report. In the interest of time, I'm going to push this through fairly quickly. I know we're approaching lunchtime, and we still want to get to a couple of business items. So I basically want to just touch on a couple of things that the board accomplished this year. I'm not going to read all of them, but there have been some accomplishments, some of them significant, some of them fairly straightforward. And I think it's the board's responsibility to work within not only the advisory committees, but the memberships, the staff of the OPA itself, and looking at a lot of different things that needed to be done. Like I said, some of them are minor. Bringing on a human resources consultant was something that was needed for quite some time. And, bringing on Steve, obviously, not that we had any foresight that this would be a wonderful opportunity, but Steve has proven to be a wonderful hire and a great asset to the community, as evidenced by the things that Paul just mentioned in regard to the audit. So, next slide. A couple of other things we wanted to just touch on is that we had the forensic audit team. Interestingly enough, and this one was more of an interest to me, we changed the announcement of the election results, and one of the topics of conversation was, would we get a quorum at the meeting, since it was traditionally the announcement of the winners of the election were announced at the annual meeting. So I'm happy to see that we were able to get a quorum. I think it speaks volumes to the folks here in Ocean Pines that are interested in what's going on, not only within the association, but within the activities of the board and the advisory committees. Town hall meetings, and we found that was a good way. I'd mentioned the fact that the format of the board meetings doesn't allow that give and take, that question and answer session. It's public comments. And so recognizing that, we decided that it's beneficial to have a town hall meeting where there's no set agenda. It's an open dialogue, an open discussion, and a way to interact with the membership to advise us of things that are important, things that need some attention, some complaints, some congratulations, and all the other things that make us do the things that we need to do to support the association. So, next meeting. This one has been, I pointed this out specifically because it's very, very important, as we've heard from John, and I'm sure everyone in the association is very much sensitive to the yacht club and its operation. And one of the accomplishments that I'm proud of that this board did this year was to have the courage and the commitment to outsource that to a management company when we knew, based on the past several years, that we didn't have the core competency to run a restaurant business. And there's no shame in that. There really isn't. When I ran for the board, I made that statement. Fortunately, I had the support of the rest of the board this year to have that courage to move forward. As Jeremy mentioned, we spent a lot of time going through the contract negotiations and make something that was beneficial for Ocean Pines and give an incentive to the Matador Company to come in and run the operation the way we needed to have it run. So obviously, although we don't have the the July numbers yet, I think everyone would reasonably agree that things are much better than they were last year. I don't think I'm going out on a limb making that statement. So I just, and I think the other part of it is clap for yourselves, because we collectively wanted something to happen good at the yacht club. Everybody wanted it to succeed. And we put the thing in place now to make it succeed. And the fact that, when Matador came in, now we are all going there again. And that's a testament to the belief that we have that that yacht club is a wonderful amenity. So I just, hats off to Matador. We're looking forward to year 2. We're looking forward to getting a little bit better and making sure that turns back into that environment that we're all proud of. So next item. I also wanted to thank a number of folks. And before I point out these folks, it's also important to thank the folks that volunteer for advisory committees, the folks that volunteer to help various events throughout Ocean Pines. Jenny talked about the spirit of volunteerism, and I'll tell you what, it is alive and well. To have people step up and want to help in any way they can is a real testament to the kind of folks that we have here in Ocean Pines. I'd also like to point out the folks that ran for the board. Thank them for their willingness to step up and take on what could arguably be, let's see, how do I say this properly, a challenging opportunity, okay? And by all means, just their willingness to help the community, it should be noted. Director Supik, her contributions should be noted throughout the year, as, she was part of the board that helped form where we are right now. Director Herrick, the same thing. We've all, he filled out his entire term, and his 3 years was wonderful. It was great that, I wanted to recognize his, and also, Vice President Cheryl Jacobs, same thing, is that they filled out their entire terms, and I think it's important, based on the amount of work that you have to be as a board member, and your desire to want to give back to the community should be noted, and I think we should give a round of applause for those folks. And in the interest of time, that's all I have, so the next item on the agenda is the General Manager's Report. John?
Good morning, everyone. I want to talk a little bit about the details of the past, and then we'll talk a little bit about the details of the future. Beginning with administration and finance, as has been noted earlier, we did hire a new director of finance. When I brought him on board, I told him, first thing, you have a clear palette. Create what we need to function the best that we should. Nothing beholding to the past on how we used to do things, create new. We also hired an individual for human resources. Same principle applied to him. You've got a clean palette, review what we have and create what we need. We've been reviewing pay, benefits, handbooks, job descriptions, processes of hiring, review, and termination. We've changed pretty much every single form we have to reflect current law as well as best practices in HR. We had to go through some other internal staff changes in the finance department and in membership services. That's your front desk over at the admin building. Regarding management software, we issued a request for proposals. We reviewed those responses. We're in very technical, a lot of technology with that, obviously, and very detailed. We had multiple demonstration days with those people who responded to that RFP. That process is ongoing. We have one more scheduled with ATG, or should say we're trying to schedule it with ATG. We haven't gotten a firm date yet on that, but that should be over the next few weeks. One thing I did want to point out is, again, is that there is no silver bullet software for what we do as Ocean Ponds Association. It doesn't exist. I'm not sure why it doesn't exist at this point in time on the marketplace, but the example there is ATG, which is the technological arm of that works with Leggeman Norman and Associa, one of the largest property management companies in the world. Their software, in and of itself, doesn't do everything that we need to do. Moving on to food and beverage, a little bit more about the Yacht Club and the Beach Club. We reviewed our operations last fall, nursed our way through that time period. That led to the closure of the Yacht Club and the temporary winter opening of the Turn Grill. We dealt with the mold problem at the Beach Club, at the Yacht Club, excuse me. We developed a plan for moving forward and looked at outsourcing. We negotiated that business arrangement with the Matt Ork companies with help of legal counsel. That has obviously resulted in a significant change in our operations at both facilities. We also did some internal improvements at both facilities. At the Yacht Club, we painted, we did wallpaper, movable partitions, lighting, equipment repair, and some replacement, and we did a bang-up cleanup job all over the place. Same, pretty much similar types of things at the Beach Club. We painted, we repaired the sprinkler system, replaced the bar top, expanded that area, and did some other equipment repairs and replacement there. And I can't tell you how clean that is compared to what it was when I got here. We talked a little bit earlier today about money related to Yacht Club and Beach Club, and I can tell you that we are in the black in both categories for Yacht Club and Beach Club. Making money, and that also impacts the bottom line overall, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. In regards to golf, the golf course is in very good shape. I've had a chance to play it once, I think, in the last few months, but from all the other folks that have been sharing their accounts of the golf course, it's in great shape. That's a tribute to the maintenance staff there. We reviewed at the operational level, we reviewed our internal payment processes for member accounts and discontinued their use. And for the first quarter, May, June, and July, when I say golf, I'm talking about golf operations, the golf play, golf maintenance, as well as Turns Grill. since it's at that location. For the first quarter, we're breaking even for all three of them together. A little bit of red in one spot, a little bit of black in the other. So we're breaking even on all three of those together through that first quarter. The Country Club building, we reviewed and revised floor plans based on the use of the facility. One of the things that I think may have been missing from some people's understanding of what's going on with the Country Club building is that it's not just a facility that's available for use by golfers. The upstairs is a facility that is designed to have a large banquet room, a couple of conference rooms that have a dividing partition that can be expanded to a larger conference room. It has a event-driven bar that will have some permanent features there, and then the outside deck will again be an outside deck and not covered. Again, it's more of a community use with those larger spaces inside upstairs. We got the full set of drawings completed and issued an RFP earlier this year. The results of that particular RFP, I would say were viable due mainly to timing, that the project will be ongoing throughout the entire playing season, and we didn't want to pursue that. We went back through the plans, asking for more input, and we made more changes, including the addition of an elevator and significant changes to the roof lines. Those are the two main ones. There are others that are captured in an add alternate list, so that the RFP that went out yesterday, the bid proposals that will come back will have a whole slew of things that the board can look at, whether we want to do this way or we want to do it that way. And the new board will have that opportunity to address decisions going forward. Aquatics, we had to address the change in use of the Yacht Club Oasis Pool as a result of the fair housing laws. We put those into place. They're going fairly well. We've had a few hiccups in there. I will say that our first violation of any of those rules was not a child. It was a 40-year-old man doing a cannonball. That was great. The aquatics has been impacted by a change in how we did our beach parking pass structure this summer. Revenue is substantially off for aquatics by about $75,000 because we created that new beach parking pass only, where you can just buy a beach parking pass. Well, that took a chunk of membership revenue out of the aquatics department, and that was done after as part of the budget, but we didn't change the budget number for aquatics revenue. That is partially offset by the beach parking income, and that's up by $38,000. Marina, we're up by $20,000 so far this summer. Racket Sports, we completed the 2 new platform tennis courts. Regarding Parks and Recreation, we'll say it again repeatedly that we are the it in the HOA world with regard to activities, camps, special events, holidays, how we communicate those things. It's really incredible. Example of that being this past week, we had our first National Night Out. I can say that I've been to a lot of those over the years, and it certainly did not look like that was our first one. It looked like we'd been doing this a number of years, so that was an example of their efforts. Public Works, we did a lot of work at the Yacht Club and the Beach Club in preparation for the changeover to the Mad Orc companies. We have opened the yard on Saturdays. That's going fairly well. People are utilizing it. We're able to do it with one person, so we'll continue to keep that open. We worked with a third-party inspector to do a review of the crabbing pier as it exists now. That resulted in its closure and the full exploratory process of what to do next. Now we're considering the existing wetland pier, making that a nature preserve area, and looking at other locations for a possible crabbing pier. And the staff has been working on those, including pictures of what a crabbing pier would look like in other different areas around the community. The refuse and recycling contract, we issued a request for proposals for that. We had 2 responses. The selection was to Republic. As they are continuing their operations, we are reviewing their work with, as well as just the practical day in, day out stuff that we get complaints on every now and then, as well as considering the amount of tonnage that is being collected and what that may offer in the future as far as levels, options on levels of service, the once a week, twice a week type of thing. Bulkheads, we continue the replacement program after significant legal wrangling over the existing contract. We are getting ready to issue an RFP for the next section of work, And the program will also be impacted by the work that's been done on the reserve study and decision factors and pricing based on the issue of whether or not we're going to continue or not to use the swim and racket use area for staging and storage. If we don't do that, and I know there's a lot of folks that don't want us to do that, that's fine, but there would be a significant impact on that monetarily wise. We just need to know what that answer is, either direction we go. Drainage, I've done a lot of on-site inspections following storms throughout the last 9 months to see problems at firsthand. Some have been small, some have been huge. We established a working group to look at drainage. This has been dealt with in years past, and a lot of work was done in sections 2 and 3, and with the help and assistance of the county, and that helped out substantially, but yet we've got a lot more to work on. The report is being finalized with operational and budgetary recommendations, and significant need of money to deal with drainage issues here in Ocean Pines. The reserve study, we scrubbed the list of components. We had multiple meetings with the Budget and Finance Committee. It's almost complete. The next piece will be B&F reviewing the final document, if you would, from DMA, our reserve advisor. And then that document, along with the Budget and Finance Committee recommendations, will be forwarded to the board for finalization and acceptance. Now, let's talk about a little bit about more about the future and a little bit more on the past with related to the budget process. Last year, we revised and expanded the Get More Input, Involvement, and Educate the Membership. That was somewhat successful, but I'd like for us to see a lot more folks at our meetings coming up in this fall. We had multiple meetings with the Budget and Finance Committee. They were all publicized and open to everyone. We had multiple hearings on the budget prior to adoption. Those were all advertised and open to everyone. We plan to produce more information in different formats for sharing with the membership that information. Now then, let me talk a little bit about one of the questions that came up earlier about what happened. 2 years ago, we were $370,000 in the red. Last year, with an inherited budget, we were $1.25 million in the red. So, what was my first task? Fix the budget. We needed to budget revenue correctly and conservatively. I'll speak to the yacht club on that as the example, as well as the beach club. Prior year revenue budgeted for the yacht club, going back 4 or 5 years now, was $1.9 million actual. Then the following year, we had $1.8 million actual in revenue. Then we had $1.7 million actual in revenue. Then we had $1.6 million in actual revenue. So what should we budget for the following year actual budgeted revenue? Maybe not 2.25. Beach club, same thing. We had certain amounts of revenue in prior years, and we budgeted $200,000 more than we had ever received. That's $850,000 problem in the budget alone. Regardless of whether we ended up with the programs that worked or not, we had an $850,000 problem in the budget line item in 2 line items. Add the 20% discount, and you can see where 75% of that $1.2 million is right there. Didn't disappear, didn't go anywhere. It was budgeted that way, and we're never going to get that with the way we were structured then. The current year, we were total budget $140,000 in the red for May and June. However, the numbers for the first quarter are due out a week from now, and I think everybody's going to be very pleased with that. We've got a lot of work to be done, no question about that, to be successful and to still do better in particular line items, legal excluded. But I believe we are heading in the right direction, and I think you'll be pleased with those July and August numbers when we get there. Operational review, we've done a lot of conversation and work at the departmental level to review our structures and processes. Some of those details, how the disclosure packets flow back and forth between departments, proration of amenity fees, member cards, beach parking pass replacement cost. Right now they're $50 we have technology in place that we don't need to charge that much for them, and that will, you'll see that next year. We're looking at a lot of preventive maintenance and cycle maintenance plans that have not, they may be, some of that is in place, but they're not formalized, and that needs to take place. Looking at our organizational structure, we as a community need to look at our governing documents, and are there any changes we need to consider or pursue? Or would we be successful at any of those types of things? Board functions, our meetings, we've already approved having 3 town halls this coming year. That will add to our communication efforts and interactions with the community. Committees, I have a question for what's missing. Maybe should we consider committees for administration, public works, safety and security, or others? And there may need to be some restructuring with how we're currently doing things. The reserve study, we'll finish that up. That will address general replacement, the bulkheads, and the roads and bridges. The drainage plan and recommendations, the legal issue that council spoke to earlier as to who is responsible for the drainage ditches is the question. However, as a practical matter, we have a huge problem, and it's not just drainage, water, and pipes. Primarily, it's our community's demographic structure. Now, I don't say the demographic structure is a problem. It's a problem related to how we deal with our ditches. There are properties whose owners don't live here year-round. They may be seasonal or weekenders. We have those owners who are no longer physically and or financially able to maintain their personal ditches. And even so, at the same time, there are certainly drainage problems that can, are, and should be tied to a specific property and owner. So, council, there you go. That's our challenge. Next, I want to let you know that we are conducting a community-wide survey, and that is being issued today. It's online as of 10 o'clock this morning. Hard copies will be mailed to you this next week, and you can also pick up a hard copy in various locations around the community here in the association. The survey is designed for use online as well as hard copy. It's due September 7th. There are 2 questions at the top. That was one for name and another one for address. And those are required to be filled in, not because we wanted to know what you personally wanted to say, but because we want to make sure it's Ocean Pines owners and property owners to prevent duplicate surveys. Anybody stuffing the ballot box, so to speak. All right, so name and address, but the name and address will not be included in the survey results. So nobody will know what Mr. Smith or Mrs. Jones thought, okay? New capital process. How many of you know how we fund new capital here? It's in the operating budget. So if it's in the operating budget, it impacts your assessment big time. This past year, we had over $250,000 worth of projects that were not included in the budget. Things like pond trail lights, pond trail exercise equipment, a bike track, 2 pieces of playground equipment. There's some things in the survey that we'll be interested to see what the responses are for these. And they come from members, they come from staff, and all over the place. We get all sorts of ideas for doing new things, but we don't have a way to fund it really. Like covered pickleball courts, or lights for the pickleball courts, or covered tennis courts, platform tennis courts, the drainage issue, expansion of the sports score facility. What about a fitness center? Lighting of intersections along Ocean Parkway, lighting of the Southgate Pond Trail, I mentioned that one earlier. Mailboxes, those wonderful, beautiful things. Yeah. We don't have a process for funding that type of stuff. And obviously, those are big ticket items. So that's something that I want to share with the Budget and Finance Committee is about a process we might explore to include capital, to fund new capital items. And then I'm going to go back to the slides and talk a little bit about how all that sort of stuff comes together. Next one. All the details of the future. You got the budget process, you got the reserve study, we got drainage to deal with, we have the survey, and all of those things lead to something that we don't have in place yet, and that's a long-range plan, or a strategic plan, or a master plan, whatever moniker we want to give it. And that, in turn, leads to budget and funding plans going forward into the future. Now then, how do we get there? You hear a lot of this word about transparency. Well, transparency includes involvement. Everybody's got to be involved, give and take both ways in order for that transparency to occur. I used to have a joke when I was the general manager at Lake of the Woods, and somebody would come up to a public meeting and say something, and all the board members and other members in the room would look around and say, where has this person been? And I would held up a little sign for the board members saying 4,261. That was the number of members that they had. And they figured out, well, why are you holding up that sign? And I would say, well, that's because I want to hire 4,261 part-time employees to go read the newsletter to everybody once a month. That way everybody's clued in. So communication, transparency, the board and myself and the staff, we can be as transparent as we possibly can, but you've got to be wanting to get answers too, okay? So that works both ways. So transparency plus community involvement equals an aware and educated membership. How many of you know what the term dynamic synergism is? Anybody ever heard that term before? Good. Thank you, sir. Couple. Dynamic synergism is a philosophy and is many elements working together is the definition of that. Now let me describe that to you in terms of our community. Next slide. Dynamic synergism is involvement, educated membership, and a healthy community. The word community is supposed to be far underneath the healthy word, but anyway. So you've got, and you'll notice the arrows there. The arrows go both ways in each direction. They're all connected. Involvement by the community equals an educated membership, which equals a healthy community. A healthy community increases involvement. Involvement increases a healthy community, and a healthy community creates an educated membership. We've got to create that dynamic synergism going in all different directions. We have a lot of that. A lot of that's going in place. Mr. Runs mentioned it earlier about the 50th anniversary. A lot of good people, a lot of years of volunteerism throughout the community, whether it's the committees, the board members, our clubs and organizations, and just people living. That type of involvement in educated membership in a healthy community. One other diagram regarding dynamic synergisms is members, boards on the left, committees on the right, and staff at the bottom. Again, all the arrows interacting in every different direction. The staff wants to service the committees, the board, and the members. The committees want to service the members, the board, and the staff. You get my point? About dynamic synergism. Let's capture that. Because the next slide, because the dynamic synergism equals a dynamic, healthy community. I'll conclude with a story. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams engaged in an incredible exchange of letters over the years, and to be specific, 202 years and 10 days ago, on August 1st, 1816, Jefferson wrote the following line in a letter to John Adams: "I like the dreams of the future better than the history of the past." And 202 years and 2 days ago, on August 9th, 1816, Adams responded, "Your taste is judicious in liking better the dreams of the future than the history of the past. Upon this principle, I prophesy that you and I shall soon meet and be better friends than ever. I like the dreams of the future better than the history of the past." I remind you again of the term dynamic synergism. In our case, as an HOA, in the case of Ocean Pines Association, the concept of dynamic synergism results in what is simply known as community. I hope this next year you will engage yourselves in the community as you have never done so before, and because of your participation, that a year from now, and even though we will certainly have those times and issues where our passion for the community only allows us to agree to disagree, we will still be able to say to each other, "Your taste is judicious in liking better the dreams of the future than the history of the past. Thank you for welcoming the Bailey family to the community, and thank you for a great first year. 1 down, 14 to go, John.
Thank you, JB. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business, and seeing that there was no unfinished business from the previous meeting last year, we will move into new business. Now, be advised, we had modified the category of new business based on the amendment to the approval of the agenda. So, anyone interested in bringing up a motion at this time may do so. Also, be advised that you don't necessarily need to make a motion in order to make a comment. So if you're coming up to make a comment, perhaps you can, I'll give you the option of either doing it now or waiting till public comments. So the floor is open for any new business. Excuse me, sir. You haven't been recognized. I'm going to recognize.
Probably the oldest one here came up to the mic.
Okay, tell you what. Let's do that. Would you give him the microphone?
I'm Alan Brodsky, 121 Windjammer Road. This is my wife Phyllis. My motion is put assessments on automatic bank deductions of around $100 monthly at the present time with present dollars, allowing a very small fraction to be, got to read my own writing, to be used for even the smallest, even the children of the lowest economic household, to be able to use any one of the amenities. It's good for the children, good for the community, good for the children that are brought into the community. And let them enjoy any sports or other amenities. That's my motion. I've got it written down if anybody can read it.
Yeah, if you could provide a written statement to that effect. Can I paraphrase?
I think I better type it up.
Yeah, could you please? If I paraphrase, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking for an additional assessment of $100 per month per member to fund the ability to use any amenity by folks who would not normally or can't afford to use that amenity. Is that correct, or did I?
Correct. I have a small discussion.
Well, I just want to make sure that we state the motion first. You need to make okay. So, is there a yeah? Hold on. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to get. That's right. Hold on.
Nobody fussed about it.
Stand by.
Everybody could use any
Excuse
amenity.
me, sir. I just wanted to make sure that everybody heard the. Excuse me. Hold on.
Anybody back there didn't hear me?
All right. All right. Now,
I
is
see
there
my
a
hand.
second to that motion? No, I'm asking for a second. All right. The motion has been made and seconded. Discussion. Now you may proceed. You have the floor for discussion.
Another case is Phyllis's dad lived in Florida, and they paid about $300 a month. Nobody fussed about it. Everybody could use any amenity. And they also built a theater, which brought in additional money because they brought national performances on Saturday nights at least. And they charged a little bit for the seats. It was a $500 theater, which we never put in. We should have a theater for our own actors and actresses who invited me in to be my first play. And I think people enjoy that. And I don't know why we don't have a stage in one of these places. It could be put in very easily. So these are small costs, very small costs compared to what we're talking about.
Other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call it. I'm sorry, other discussion? Microphone.
just want to say I love this man. That's why I'm here. You know, I got 6 children. One of them serving in London. You know, and I honestly, this community needs more for children to do. And I'd rather take if I can, my HOAs, I'd rather say I don't want to pay for this service. I want to put it towards this. You know, at least that, you know, because, I mean, this is what we're lacking. I mean, we got volunteer firefighters. We got, you know, a lot of people. We can't go build a pier. We can't redo the pier with volunteers. We were founded on volunteers. And every time you look, they're restricting children. And this is why I'm here. Guys, I mean, you guys are doing a great job. The new yacht club, the new beach club, I mean, it's amazing. You just have somebody that knows how to run business. You know, and I mean, you can put a theater in a beach club at night. I don't know if you can get away with it, but, you know, why not use it? It should be like the Green Turtle. Why not use it? It's a great spot. You know, I mean, that's all. But I thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Other discussion? Got one coming up. Hold on.
Lou Williams, 78 Teal Circle. I think it's a yeoman suggestion, but when I look at the demographics of our community, 40% retired, I believe, 40% may be working, and 20% part-time. When you talk about individuals who are on fixed income, you're talking about a $1,200 addition a year, and we're still talking about deficits, it becomes a challenge. And I just want to be clear that I did hear you say that whatever motions we make here may not necessarily be binding. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I just wanted to put that out there, that I don't think that we're opposed to helping children, but I think we have to look at the realistic point of view. The reason why we've been in existence for 50 years is we've been raised on the shoulders of individuals who've been here for a long time. And we're going to price ourselves out of those individuals who made this community. Thank you very much.
Other discussion?
My name is Ann Williamson, 124 Camelot Circle. I come on weekends sporadically. I've never been at my house for more than 3 or 4 days at a time. I find that the accessibility of the association and the meetings to the part-timers is very poor. And I don't think that a flat $100 a month addition to my homeowners association dues. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Okay.
All right, sir,
Okay.
you're out of order. She's got the floor right now, but thank you.
Okay, so now we have clarification. But my point about the distribution of the costs on the members relative to what they get out of it, I think still stands. And I do have a question about the bulkheads.
Now, the discussion is
Well,
relevant to the motion.
Oh,
We will
okay.
keep the discussion relevant to the
But it's relevant
motion.
to the point of the distribution of the financial burden, okay? Do the people who live on bulkheads pay $951 a year? Okay, okay, point settled, okay. So, okay.
All right,
So I will be back when there's another issue up that I want to bring up. So that's my reaction, though, to any kind of general assessment increase.
thank you. Other comments? Other discussion, I'm sorry, other discussion. Relevant to the motion. Discussion relevant to the motion on the floor. Sorry, so there's only one chance for coming up, that's all, I'm sorry. The way the parliamentary procedure, you had your one chance for a comment. Perhaps if it goes further, you might want to add that to any ongoing conversation. Right. Seeing no further discussion on that motion, I will close the discussion and call the question. Sir, if you wouldn't mind, could you please reread the motion so that everyone understands exactly what they are voting on, and be advised that this will be treated as non-binding per our bylaws? Please read that.
Probably the oldest one here, and I can't walk to the mic. If I could speak loud. Could you hold this for me so my hand doesn't shake? May I have a shaky hand, too, as well as shaky writing. Hold it up so I can see it, please, dear. motion is to put assessments on an automatic bank deduction of around $100 monthly. That's $1,200 a year. So that would include an averaging in the people who live on the places where they have boats. Okay, hold it up. Around $100 monthly, allowing a very small fraction of that, which is all it would take, to allow even children of the lowest economic household income to enjoy sports or other amenities. Let the children grow. That's it. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? All right, the motion is defeated. Floor is open for other new business.
My name is Donna Canary. I live at 19 Camelot Circle. I'd like to make a motion to incorporate a noise ordinance specifically restricting dogs barking between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 p.m. I've lived in Ocean Pines since 1996. I've owned dogs the whole time. I love dogs and I love Ocean Pines. I represent my neighbors behind me, to the left and right of me, and even across the street. We are being denied quiet enjoyment of our properties due to inconsiderate behaviors of a neighbor. Police reports will document our complaints.
Is there a second to that motion? I see a second back here. Discussion.
I would like to make a motion to
incorporate a noise ordinance for dog barking between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Is that it?
11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
All right. Did everybody hear the motion in its entirety? All right, state it one more time. Please, excuse us. Jeremy, please.
The motion, again, all motions have to be put down into writing, so this is the written motion. To incorporate a noise ordinance for dog barking between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. 6 a.m. That's the motion that was made. Again,
Right.
this is not a non-binding motion, it's just for...
Right. Thank you. Further discussion? Discussion on this motion. All right, seeing none, I'll close discussion and call the question. All those in favor of the motion as submitted, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Aye. Okay. All right, we're going to have to do this by hand count. So, you got it? Okay. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please raise your hand and hold it up so we can get an accurate count. Yes, got cards, I'm sorry.
Well, this is a non-substantive motion.
Right.
So we're counting for a substantive motion.
Yeah.
And this is a
Yeah,
non-substantive motion.
so please, in favor of the motion as presented, please hold your hand up, hold it up so we can get an accurate count. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your hand.
All right, the motion carries.
Good, motion carries, thank you. All right, again, non-binding based on bylaw 4.02, but we'll take that under consideration at the next board meeting. The floor is still open for new business.
Good morning, everyone, or should I say good afternoon?
Microphone. Turn it, Ben, you can bend that down. There you go.
Okay. I'm Donna Lebo. I live at 9 Oceans End. I'd like to make the following motion, requesting that the board consider alternate staging grounds for bulkhead repair and maintenance and return the Swim and Racket Club Park back to its originally intended use as a park and recreational area for the use and enjoyment of the residents who live here and for public use.
Is there a second? Discussion.
As a brief history, if I may, as a
Please.
courtesy to the members that are here, I'd like to provide a brief history. Over the course of the last 5 months, a section of the Swim and Racket Club Park has been used as a staging ground for stockpiling and storage of bulkhead materials and equipment, including storage units, dumpsters, cranes, and barges. The materials are being hauled into the park by tractor-trailer trucks, dump trucks, and other construction vehicles using Seabreeze Road, a road that is barely wide enough for two vehicles to pass safely, much less construction vehicles. It's a heavily traveled road used by the public to gain access to the Swim and Racket Club Park. There are no berms to safely walk, ride bikes, run, etc. The materials are being unloaded in the parking lot or at the staging area using forklifts while children, adults are playing in the same area, riding bikes and walking their dogs while the work is being done. There is no supervision by anyone to ensure the safety of people in the park. Over the last 5 months, I, along with other residents, have observed 3 full-service marine companies using this site, bringing in materials, unloading materials, loading materials, and the existing RFP contract is with High Tide. So why these other companies are there using this area is of question and concern. We know that rocks that was used for a riprap installation was brought in. 4 to 5 dump trucks brought these rocks in. It was for a private job. Kevin Layfield acknowledged it, our facilities manager. He would not say whether the work was done in Ocean Pines, who actually did the work, or who authorized it. We can only assume it was never authorized. So the question remains, what good is a contract if the companies we hire do not adhere to the terms and conditions of those contracts? There are numerous issues. Safety and liability are of paramount concern. Ron Frey and I met with the GM and Kevin Layfield, facilities manager, to address our concerns. Mr. Bailey heard our concerns and agreed to address this with the board and offered 2 options: remove the materials to another location, pay an additional fee of $25,000 to remove the materials from the site area and move the materials off-site. The board at the last meeting voted down a motion to add the additional cost for bulkhead repair to the agenda for discussion due to lack of information. So effectively, my motion is to get this issue back on the agenda so that we can work together to resolve the issues at the park. As I said, there are numerous concerns, issues, and I'm requesting the board give serious consideration to returning the Swim and Racket Club Park back to its intended use, a park and recreational area for the use and enjoyment of the residents who live here and for the public who use this park on a daily basis year-round.
Thank you. Other comments on this motion?
Good afternoon. My name's Robin Tomaselli. I live at 59 Grandport. I 100% agree with everything that Donna presented, and I can tell you that we have been dealing with this issue for far longer than 5 months. We've been before the board repeatedly. I would just like to mention to everybody and remind them that as reported at the last board meeting, the Swim and Racket Club is probably one of the most used recreation areas outside of maybe the Yacht Club in all of Ocean Pines. You have swim team, kayaking, paddleboarding, beach visitors, joggers, dog walkers, and the list goes on, and that area is used both day and night. This area is not only an eyesore, it presents a danger to all who utilize it, and many of them are children. OPA is lucky that over the last of the course of more than 5 years that no one has been injured down there. And if you think an increase in removing that staging area to someone else is significant, then I would suggest you consider what the cost of a lawsuit will be when someone is injured. The declaration of restrictions were established by OPA to protect the safety and property value of all OPA residents and visitors. This declaration of restrictions continues to be violated, in my opinion, by the board and the general manager by negligently allowing the storage of heavy construction equipment and materials at the Swim and Racket Club. The area was never established or intended to be a storage or a work area. I'd like to also add that that area is also on a small peninsula of land that's within Worcester County's critical area, which is impaired for sediment and nutrient, and therefore a part of the Coastal Bay's watershed that has continually received a D grade because of these impairments. The river struggles due to stormwater and runoff impacts. Both Assateague Coast Keepers and Maryland Coastal Bays agree that if only for the reason to improve the health of the river, OPA has an obligation, and so do the marine construction companies, to find alternative locations outside of that critical area buffer for the storage of equipment, debris, dockage of barge, boats, and related bulkhead repair. The residents near the Swim and Racket Club have been trying to resolve this issue for far too long, and it's time that the board and general manager take permanent steps to return the area known as Swim and Racket Club to its only intended purpose.
Other comments on this motion? Other discussion on this motion?
I'm Lou Visco from 44 Teal Circle, talking about this particular issue. We moved into our home in 2000 in April, and in the first 3 years that we were here, I became a member of the Parks and Recreation Committee. And on that committee, we were given assignments, each of us to an individual area in Ocean Pines. I was given the Swim and Racket area to monitor and report back on the good and bad that we could find in that issue. At that time, there was no roadway from the parking lot back to that point. There was just a little trail going back there. And it was a very peaceful area. It was clean, enjoying crabbing, fishing, sitting and watching sunset and so forth. That area was also used for the stand to view the annual boat parade that went through there. So there was none of this operation that we've seen the past few years in that location at that time. And then Fish and Marine appeared, and they began to do some work there. In addition to the work they were doing on the point, they located several large barges along the south part of the tennis court. And large trucks came from the parking lot onto the grass and loaded and unloaded from that area. And lo and behold, the whole darn section fell into the canal. All the bulkhead, all the dirt and everything went in. That was all repaired at somebody's cost. I don't think Fish and Marine. Fortunately, they stopped putting and tying up in that location, but focused on the pier. It got worse and worse and worse. It looked like a shipyard repair. They were welding fuel up there. All the birds that were there disappeared. Terrible. And fortunately, about 2 years ago, after multiple complaints to the board, they got out of there, cleaned that all up, and it was very nice. This year, a new company appears, and the same thing is happening. Now, anyone who's been in that area can see how that area is deteriorating. There's been a barge perpendicular to the point out into the canal with materials on that thing for the past 4 months. Nothing happening except for materials to barricade people from using that particular area. It is no good, and it's time for the board to act on this issue. Thank you.
Other comments on this motion? Seeing none,
Yeah, I'm Peggy Turner, 337 Ocean Parkway. I'm sitting here listening to this. I went over there and I looked at that spot a couple of weeks ago, and I was appalled at how it's deteriorated and what it's turned into. I like Swimming Racket Club. That's not what it was put there to be. And I'm gonna tell you the truth, when I hear that a marine company has come in and dumped rocks and junk in there, that stupid fence is up, and they're doing private jobs. Who in the heck are these private jobs for, and why are we not going back on them to pay to clean that mess up and get it out of there? I'm appalled when we know these private jobs are going on and they're using Ocean Pines facility as a dumping ground. Who in the heck authorized that? I'd like to know. Who can we hold accountable?
other questions regarding this motion?
Doris Lloyd, 65 Wood Duck. I agree with these people wholeheartedly. None of that should be in Ocean Pines. And with that, I'm here to defend another area which has been suggested. They put it between Wood Duck 1 and Wood Duck 2. They were there at one time. I called the company because there were children playing on it, and they removed it. It has now come a very utilitarian place for people to play, and they crab there every day with plenty of parking area. So I'm saying, get it out of Ocean Pines. We have over $2 million in the bulkhead fee, or whatever you want
Reserve.
to call it. And there's money there to take it out and get a contract that eliminates them doing it in Ocean Pines. Thank you.
Other discussion on this motion?
Good morning, or good afternoon. I'm Bill Hoschel, and I live at 57 Grandport Road. And one of the things that I agree with everything that has been said. We live in Ocean Pines because it is a beautiful area to live in. I think we've all established that. We all like the views that we have. Even if we're not on the water, we still like the amenities that we have. All of us that live around the Racket and Swim Club, we are now looking what we thought was going to be a beautiful view of the water, but we're looking at cranes, we're looking at bulldozers, we're looking at barges. That's what we have, where a lot of the community does not have that. They've still got that beautiful view. So what they're also doing is the construction companies that are in there, they've actually taken and partitioned off the area where the cars used to come in, the trucks used to come in to take stuff off of their trucks to put on the boats because we have a beautiful marina there. So now they're saying, well, you can't come back here because this is our area. This is what we are using as a construction site, and we don't want you in here. They put up a little sign for liability that keep children off of the equipment and keep children off of all the motorized vehicles and so forth. But we see rusty things back there where kids can go and have a lot of fun and go hurt themselves, and that's where the liability comes in. I'll read a quick statement. Shouldn't the board of directors and the general manager be held accountable for the declaration of restrictions and resolutions passed by the board, as every resident in Ocean Pines is held accountable by these same restrictions? How many residents have been sent letters, received fines, and taken to court annually due to eyesores and unsafe conditions on their property, but yet we at the Swim and Racket Club, they remain, despite
the public outcry for change. So we're just saying, make Ocean Pines beautiful everywhere, and not us where we have to look at these different eyesores. Thank you.
Other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented originally, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. Again, non-binding according to Section 4.02, and will be taken under consideration at the next board meeting. The floor is still open for additional new business. Public comments is coming up. We're talking about new business. Seeing no new business, I'll close that portion of the meeting. Thank you very much. We'll move into the next item on the agenda, and that is the Election Committee report and validation of the election. Steve Habiger.
Thank you, Doug. As chairperson of the Elections Committee, it is my pleasure to announce and validate the results of the 2018 election to the Ocean Pines Board of Directors. Yesterday, the Elections Committee reported the results of ballot counting in this election. In accordance with OPA bylaw, Section 5, Article 5, Section 5.03D, those candidates receiving the higher number of votes shall be elected to 2 to 3-year terms, and those receiving lower numbers of votes shall be elected to serve for the remainder of any unexpired terms in descending order of votes received. Therefore, Steve Tuttle and Frank Daly have been elected to 3-year terms. Ted Maroney and Esther Diller placed 3rd and 4th in the vote count respectively, so they are elected to fulfill the remaining 1-year terms created by the resignation of 2 directors. The 2018 election is hereby validated.
Steve, thank you, and on behalf of the Ocean Pines Board of Directors, thanks very much to all the folks on the Election Committee for their hard work and their efforts in getting all these things organized and done by, via our bylaws. Thank you. Point of order that the next item on the agenda was the 50th anniversary discussion, but given that we were soliciting for a quorum, I believe we all agreed to move that earlier in the meeting, and that part of it has already been done. So I'll move to the next item on the agenda, and that is public comments. Again, public comments, please limit your public comments to 5 minutes. And as always, name and address, please. Thank you.
My name is Rob Osfein, 12th Lord Guy, and I hope nobody interfere with my speech. I'll get upset. Okay, President, the first thing what I want to do, I want to thank Tom Harris for his service. He was a very good friend and a very effective man for Ocean Pine. Beside him, I want to thank Mr. Sloverdam, the same thing. In my opinion, this is my opinion, this was 2 outstanding men in the 27 years that I live in Ocean Pine as directors. I have talked to you. I'm very disappointed in the people who run for the board. I want to make a comment that the bylaw will be changed, that anybody who runs for the board spend 1 year at least on a committee. We got too many people running for the board. They're coming from Philadelphia, from New York, from everywhere, living part-time or what. This is Ocean Pine. We live in Ocean Pine. They don't have to come and push ideas from other cities on our back. I like to see that be done. And what happened here with the last election with the 7 people, you know, we have problems with, well, Mr. Hill is a good friend of me, but certain things happened to Mr. Hill. I cannot see what the bylaw says. I say put the man on the ballot. I don't think he was elected. Now it is going to cost us $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 probably in court costs. We're throwing our money around. Here another thing I read it this week in the paper about the country club. We give a guy $35,000 for something he never did. You ask us for raise, dues. I've been here 27 years. I write everything up. My expenses here in Ocean Pine went up 300–400%. I can prove it. What it cost me to rent the house and live in Ocean Pine. And here was this lady here and Pete Gomsek. They was in the board. I had pretty hard words with these people, but we still good friends. They was good people. But we had a lot of difference. We had good people in the board. And there's a lot of things here we have to go to save our money. See, Pete Gomsek is a very smart man, but the difference I had with Pete thinks 10 years ahead what happened in Ocean Pine. Pete is a very smart man. I not. I live today. Let me live by today. It's like I say, my expenses went very, very high. I have to live from day to day. So don't set me right. And another thing I want to ask the general, we have a good general manager. We spend a tremendous lot of money on the roads. Okay, and you know, all I do a little bit bike riding. If I ride from the South Gate north, past Brandywine, you got 37 to 40 patches from people who dig a hole and put cold spot on it. And here we spend millions of dollars to fix the road. Why did we don't get behind these people and fix the road right? You know, there's a lot of things we can save money. I'm lucky that the general manager say that the yacht club goes good. But one thing, what is bothering me too, the guy who took over, he wanted everything new. What do we do with all the stuff Mr. Hill put in? Why we spend so much money and let this guy dominating us? That is our money. So I hope I have said nothing wrong. I like to live. I've been here 27 years. I enjoy the life. And let us go on, but let us slow down. My pension don't went up 300–400%, I can tell you that. But my expenses, thank you for saying.
Other public comments?
Lou Williams, 78 Teal Circle. In relationship to the Swimming Racket Club, the biggest question for me is this. If the board decides to remove it, who's going to pay for the cost? Should it be the membership who didn't want it there? Or should it be those who gave permission for it to be there? I think that's something we have to look at, not just it just get moved, but if it's $25,000, who's that $25,000 going to come from? And it's not fair that we pay for it if we didn't give permission. Secondly, Mr. Bailey, thank you for that report of telling us that we're in the black in the yacht club. I'm not real good with numbers, but I try to do some math. It looks like we're at $679,000 deficit at this point. Now, my question is this. Being that we're in the black, based on those numbers, how many months would it take us to make up that deficit? And with our doors being closed probably in October, or business being slow in October, November, December, January, will we be able to recoup that $679,000 loss by the end of fiscal year?
Other public comments?
Ann Williamson again, 124 Camelot Circle. My first comment is to mention how impressed I was with the professionalism of the presentations. The management does seem to be more professional than what I observed at a meeting a few years ago. My second comment is about the crabbing pier, which seems to have become an issue. And I can see why. I live in the south part of Ocean Pines, well into the south part. We don't really have any amenities there. From where I sit, all the swimming pools are in the north end. The tennis complex is at least a mile away from me. We use the crabbing pier when we're here. We take walks there regularly. We don't understand. You have an intact pier there. Doesn't seem that that's the expense. The expense will be replacing the platform. So any movement of the crabbing pier away from that vicinity would be would represent a decline in the value of the amenities to me. So I want to register that complaint, and I hope when the board talks about it, they will take that fairness issue into consideration.
Other public comments?
Hi, Lynn Killian, 1272 Ocean Parkway. I'm a full-time resident. At the June 23rd meeting, a neighbor and I voiced our numerous reasons in favor of crab pier being repaired, replaced, and kept open.
Closer to the mic.
And kept open at its current location, which can be read in July's OC progress. I also provided the board with a petition signed by 50 residents who are in support of crab pier at the current location, half living within Whitetail Sanctuary, the other half in the surrounding area. At the July 27th meeting, which I was unable to attend, Michael Galello, representative of the Whitetail residents, stated the pier was built in 1997 and then deeded to the association about 5 years later. I was baffled to read that the neighborhood had held a meeting on July 14th. I live 50 steps away from Charleston Road and would like to have been part of this meeting since I use it all the time and I'm a part of the association. 41 people should not decide to take away or alter an amenity that belongs to all of us in the Pines in a private meeting with a board member. I go to Crab Pier several times a week, sometimes more than once in a day, many times biking. I've never seen drinking, littering, or a boat dock there. Most are adults enjoying crabbing with their children. I find residents very mindful of bikers and walkers and feel very comfortable to let my grandchildren ride their bikes to the pier. I was interested to hear some of the residents' concerns, but felt they were overstated. Poop in their yards? I know many people in the Pines have dogs, and yes, I have poop in my yard too. People have knocked on my door to ask to use my phone or solicit a service. You just say no, don't answer the door. I pick up bottles and trash that end up in my yard every week. As a child, I occasionally would take a shortcut through a neighbor's yard. A toddler falling into the water, that can happen at any pier, fault of the parent, not the pier or the location. Child struck by a car, again, not the fault of the pier or the location. The driver is responsible, and it could happen anywhere. Parking problem. I've never seen more than 2 cars parked in front of the entrance, as stated also from other residents. Put a no parking sign. Refer parking, if necessary, to the Robin Hood Park, a nice park within walking distance with parking available for a dozen vehicles or more at no additional cost to the association. I'm curious how many police reports have been logged for these problems. Then I wondered, can any of our amenities be eliminated? The golf course, the pickleball, the pools, music at White Horse Park, because 41 residents decide there's too much traffic, there's too many people, there's too much noise or littering. And they don't want to live near these amenities any longer. I understand that the next step will be for the general manager to host a working strategy session with all of the concerned homeowners in the association interested in the pier, not just the people who live in Whitetail Sanctuary. Mr. Bailey, I'm requesting to be added to the invitation list for the strategy session. Thank you.
Other public comments?
Stephen Curtis again, Locust Court, 5 Locust Court, and it's off of Camelot. And that crab pier was actually, it was just a beauty to have. I mean, I have little children. They're going down there with bikes and you know, little nets, and I've been down there, and it's been so peaceful. It's our crab pier. You guys took all our amenities from us, and how far is it to go to the nearest swimming pool? You know, I mean, we got the indoor pool, but I mean, it's still a little height, you know, and it's just something really nice because while I'm cooking dinner, I can have my boys just ride down to the pier, you know, and they can go crabbing, and I used to go check on them, and they would come home. A lot of times I would go down, and I've always cut lines and kept it clean, and yeah, sometimes there's a little trash here and there, but I always picked it up, even if it's other people's. And for you to take something like that away, I mean, we're paying $1,000 a year. You got to give us something, man. We need something down the south side. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, but my neighborhood's been terrific within like 3 months now. I mean, it's been insane. There's been a lot of new children that moved in, and a lot of them ride their bikes to my house, you know, and I got 3 little girls, man, and I got 3 boys and 3 little girls, and it's just something you guys are taking away, and I think there could be some. I agree with that. Their swim racket pool. I got a paddle boat, and I really enjoy it out there. And if somebody's dumped their stuff that doesn't belong to Ocean Pines, I thought Ocean Pines like hired these people. If they're doing contract work from other people, why are they even there? I mean, that place is beautiful. You know, that's one of the. I mean, that's a highlight place. If I'm driving all the way out there, I'm definitely going to have my paddle boat with me. A lot of times that water's a little cold, you know, but it's just something. Leave our preservatives there, you know, leave our amenities there, you know, give back to us. And honestly, I've never seen people park, but if they did, I mean, there's the law, and the law should jump on it and take care of those situations. You know, even if it was, we have public disturbance. I think it's an 8 o'clock law. It's in the bylaws. If I'm not mistaken, it's already, you can't play music after 8 o'clock. So that could resolve a lot of these issues. And I will say this, the board did, the recent members of the board and the recent decisions that are being made, you guys are really putting things together. You know, I think we should have more experience to get to know you guys and talk to you guys and voice our really, you know, I mean, just to voice our opinions. But I mean, just living here 5.5 years, and all of a sudden, a corporation took over these restaurant, the Beach Club and the Yacht Club, and just to see the revenue. Well, why don't we push more forward at? You know, push more for this experience, because we do have a gorgeous piece of real estate. I mean, we do. We all should be living here, helping everybody. That's it. I just want to hope they keep them open, and maybe add a few other amenities somewhere down the line, you know, get some volunteers, you know.
Other public comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.